Welcome to Dice and Mind, a podcast hosted by Brad Brown and Jason Kaufman to explore the intersection of life, games, science, music, philosophy, and creativity through interviews with leading creatives. All are welcome in this space.
I was thinking about this before we hit record, but I didn't mention it before we hit record. We don't necessarily talk about or get to talk with authors who write books or write material that's RPG related all that often that isn't a direct RPG book.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's certainly not these days.
The tradition and traditionally when we talk with RPG authors, they're directly involved with an IP of some sort.
Lots of chats with IP authors, right?
Yeah.
Or freelancers or whatever.
No, we have, but it's just not as often.
Very true.
So our guest tonight, our returning guest tonight,
Our third time, which is
yes,
remarkable.
I love having Keith back on because his material, as you all will hear in the interview, he talks about it from a 5e perspective, but you'll also hear him talk about the fact that this crosses game platforms. This crosses ecosystems.
So if you're listening to this podcast, and we're grateful that you're one of the four, and
Brian, don't fall.
Exactly, slow down on the treadmill. And you've been under a rock, maybe you haven't heard of Keith Ammann. I don't know how. But to your point, Brad, he's not part of any of the IPs, but he is, he's a master of monster design for 5e and beyond. And it's very, very, it's cool stuff. I mean, don't you think? Like, he's just so creative and I mean this positively, so clinical and so logical in his construction.
Yeah, and even you'll hear it, folks, when we start talking. Unfortunately, you won't see it, but when he starts talking about some of the monster theory and all of
Oh
that.
my God, that's so cool.
Jason, your face just like
I'm pretty sure my eyes opened up on one of those.
The researcher in you.
Well, he said monster theory, and I'm like, go on.
Yes, the researcher in you just like went bleep, lit up because he talks about different like theories about monster development and things like that, and he talks about he talks about like last decade or sometime in the recent past, this new theory of monster development came in, and
I'd never heard
and the
that
more he
before.
starts talking about this, we won't give it anything away. You'll be able to tell because I not only do I see it in your face, but your questions, and you could just hear it in your voice because
he had my
the
attention.
Researcher and the academic and the gamer in you all melded together in that one moment, and
in one wonderful
I thought your laptop
vase.
was going to melt.
That's great, thanks. but I think it's a bit true, but this is also, and I think you would agree. But for me, this is what I most appreciate about Keith. He's so bright and he's so intentional and thoughtful about his work in that realm. And I mean, I really think it's creative, not to take away from the many writers who are, pumping out these IPs and doing all the monster construction. Right. But with Keith, he's taking it to a different level, and he'll talk about this, so we won't say much right now, but it seems like we've now spoken with Keith thrice in the past 3 years, which is remarkable to me, and grateful that he's willing to waste his time, so much of it with us. And I think you can see the evolution of what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting because his work is beginning to become system agnostic. And that just opens up so many options in and out of 5e.
The other thing, well, I'm going to save that piece. I'm going to save that
Okay.
piece until after we talk.
Should we just
But
go
there's,
over?
yeah, let's just go over.
Keith Ammann is an ENNIE Award-winning writer based in Chicago. He's the author of several books of advice for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons players, including The Monsters Know What They're Doing, Combat Tactics for Dungeon Masters, More Monsters Know What They're Doing, How to Defend Your Lair, and most recently Making Enemies, Monster Design Inspiration for Tabletop Role-Playing Games, as well as the blog The Monsters Know What They're Doing. He's been a role-playing gamer and game master for more than 30 years. He likes to play outwardly abrasive helpers, out of their element helpers, and genuinely nice, helpful helpers. Mostly, though, he plays non-player characters and monsters.
As usual, we were chatting right before we hit record, and we were talking about independent bookstores, which we always love to chat about. So, but Keith, thanks for joining us again. This is your actually, we looked at it. This is your
Their
third
third
visit,
time. Yeah.
third
Wow.
time
You
back with
have
us.
terrible judgment.
Yes. Keith has terrible judgment
Yes,
in
yeah,
terms of returning.
yes, to be
returning. We
clear.
have good judgment in inviting him. He has
That's
terrible
right.
judgment in
Yeah.
accepting.
But it really is good to see you again and to talk to you, and really we appreciate it because it's like you have been. So we saw you last almost exactly 3 years ago, back
Yes, for How to Defend Your Lair.
Yeah.
yes, which remains. I mean, I can look over and there they all are.
Mhm.
That probably is my favorite, or easily in the top three of my favorite RPG books. That one I absolutely loved. Um, and in the meantime, like my God, you've become like this RPG writing god. I mean, I mean not to go over the top, but like the fact that you have this entire series now, and like before we were recording, we were talking about how Brad and I, we are actively seeing your books on shelves, both big box and indies, in both
Mhm.
of our cities. It just makes me very happy. I think it's a remarkable, wonderful thing.
Well,
I
thank you.
was,
I actually feel like my star has faded a little bit because it took me so long to get Making Enemies out after How to Defend Your Lair. But I don't know. That's my perception from my end. But
oh,
It
I
looks
felt
good.
like I felt like what I've seen over the past few years is that I've noticed that the talk of your books has kind of like increased over the past few years. It feels like people were like catching like
Yeah.
and finding your books, and then um was doing some research, and it was interesting. Polygon actually, when they were talking about your book, it said you will never see, this was the title of the article, you'll never see D&D monsters the same way again after reading this essential TTRPG book. That was the title of the review for um
Making enemies?
for Making Enemies.
Yeah.
um and so and we were privileged enough to get an advanced PDF copy of the book, so we were able to see it and read it
It's just so
beforehand.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's phenomenal how, and the just I Polygon was just one of the example reviews that we saw of it. Um, what was the, if you don't mind, um, reverse engineering a little bit, what was kind of the onus behind you going and
Yeah, why
now
this
after,
direction?
yeah, why
Yeah.
that direction?
well, it's funny that you describe it as reverse engineering because reverse engineering is how I've always described what I do in The Monsters Know What They're Doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now with Making Enemies, I'm actually doing the engineering in the forward direction for a change. But I knew the D&D was coming out with its 50th anniversary rules revision. I knew that when that happened, it was going to take me a little bit of time to update The Monsters Know What They're Doing and revise it for the new edition. And I needed to find some way to keep myself afloat in the interim between How to Defend Your Lair and revising The Monsters Know. And so Teus Abadia, who is a designer, a podcaster. He does Mastering Dungeons with Sean Merwin. He's got a lot of credits, including being one of the writers of Acquisitions Incorporated,
So
Oh,
so
yes.
good.
that source book for WotC. He on his YouTube channel did a thing where he gave a kind of a framework for thinking about how to decide what to work on when you're creating independent work in the third party space for a game like D&D.
Yeah.
And it boiled down to on a scale from 1 to 10, rating what things you're most passionate about, but also in addition to that, rating how much time it takes you to produce certain kinds of content and how much it takes out of you, like how much it stresses you out and drains your energy and that sort of thing as a counterpoint. And when you put all of those things together, the things that give you the most reward for the least Sturm und Drang, those are the things you should be working on. And for me, that list came up with game mastering advice and NPCs and monsters at the top. And really all of the things I write are game master advice in one form or another.
Yeah.
And so it's just a question of what is the topic of the advice going to be. And at one point I was on the Mastering Dungeons podcast as an interview guest, and they described me as a designer of monsters. And I said, well, hang on. I haven't really done a lot of monster design. I've done a lot of monster exegesis, but I haven't really done much monster design of my own. And Sean and Teos said, well, we'd really love to see what you would do if you got into the design space, if you started designing monsters. And I remembered that. And that, together with the recommendation of the spreadsheet that I should write some stuff about monsters, made me think that would be a good thing to put out. So I was driving back from a vacation in the North Woods of Wisconsin with my family, and I handed my spouse a notepad and a pen, and I just said, okay, just start writing down all the stuff I'm saying here. I'm just going to brainstorm a whole bunch of stuff about creating monsters and write it down, and I'll make some sense of it later.
That's
that
cool.
became the outline of the book.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not entirely surprised because like I know how methodical you are, right, as a thinker, as a writer, but that's pretty slick. So what was the like moving forward from that? I'm curious because this is
Just before
I'm
you do
sorry,
that,
go ahead.
I just want to say monster exegesis. That is the coolest
Yeah,
term.
you had me.
I
I know.
love that term. Sorry, I don't have a
Yeah.
question. I just have a comment. That is an awesome
Long
term.
time listener, first time caller. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious though, Keith, okay, so after that point of just getting those thoughts down vicariously on paper, like this is qualitatively differently than what you've written, to my mind. Like what was the prep like for this? I remember talking with you about the other books, but like what was that like? Like the mind space, like where you wanted to go, how to do this, how to do it in a voice that others could follow.
This one was a lot more akin to How to Defend Your Lair than it was to The
Yep, that makes
Monsters
sense.
Know and More Monsters. I mean, that was all just a kind of a repeated process of analyze a stat block,
Yeah.
see what it's telling me, and write it down. Whereas How to Defend Your Lair required a good deal more actual research, and 13 months of it, in fact. Making Enemies, thankfully, I was able to turn around a little bit faster than that. But then at the tail end, because I had created all of these monsters, there was also some play testing to do, and of course, there's always the art. And so when I wrote How to Defend Your Lair and The Monsters Know, they both began with a lot of just going out and scooping up books on, that might answer
Sure.
questions that I
Sure.
wanted answered. Just your basic kind of research.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of making enemies, a lot of that research was in the area of monster theory, which is a sort of a subject matter study within the umbrella of cultural studies. And it kind of began roughly in the 90s, kind of took off in the early 2000s, and has just been kind of growing in an importance, I guess, from there. But that fed into the monsters as metaphors chapter a lot.
Okay.
That kind of reading. And then as far as the other research went, that was more studying game systems that I was less familiar with,
Yep.
seeing how they solved certain problems, playing around with them, looking at published monsters in those systems, and kind of picking apart how they worked, reverse engineering them so that I could have the familiarity to then design in those systems in the forward direction.
I'm still hooked on monster theory, but this is good.
Yeah,
That's
when
absolutely
you said that, I
fascinating.
saw Jason had this face on the
Like
study
just
of
making a
monster
mental
theory.
note for later.
Yeah.
Yeah. This, I had meant to bring to put a bibliography into How to Defend Your Lair.
Oh, yeah.
But due to some quirks about how so all right. So at the beginning of How to Defend Your Lair, this is kind of a tangent.
Yeah.
I had been trying out writing in Scrivener, which
Yeah.
is some software that is used a lot by academics, novelists, screenwriters. It's got a lot of tools for handling citations, tracking traits that are associated with characters, and things that are very useful for novelists and screenwriters and academics. But I found it really hard to use because with my background as a journalist, my tendency is to just dump notes into a file and then turn them into readable prose.
Right.
And when I was using Scrivener, I got frustrated by how compartmentalized all of the information was and how I couldn't easily find something else that I wanted to refer to because I would have to figure out what card I'd stored it on, and it never looked right on the screen to me, and it just it's an underrated thing, having software that you're very familiar with and that you can just it just looks right to you. Like if something is a little bit off, that can mess up your whole flow
Big time.
And and that was one of the problems I always had with Scrivener. I'm getting older, my eyesight ain't what it used to be, and the letters were always too small, and they wouldn't stay when I tried to make them bigger. And it was all a big thing. So I went back to doing what I always used to do as a journalist, which is just put everything in one giant Word file and find what I want with Control F. And but somewhere along the line, I lost my bibliography. I had all my citations.
Oh, that's terrible.
In Scrivener, and I went back in and couldn't find them anymore. And so I ended up having to, skip the bibliography in How to Defend Your Lair because I couldn't reconstruct it. This time I was more careful and I knew from the get-go, this one I want to have a bibliography in, especially for the monster theory stuff. And so I cited a few resources I used, like Animal Eyes was a really useful book for talking about how vision organs work in animals. particularly in weirder animals. And there were some others, but where I really said, okay, I'm going to cite the heck out of this is the monster theory chapter. And that's where the bibliography goes deepest.
Taking attention to again as well. So it's interesting to me that you said you were able to write Making Enemies a bit quicker than How to Defend Your Lair, because How to Defend Your Lair is this nice, concise book. I think Making Enemies, I have to go back and check. I think it's 592 pages.
Yeah, it's almost twice as long, which is
Yeah,
funny.
it's a tome, another tome.
Yeah.
How did you? I mean, my God, that's a lot to work to write and to create. How long did it actually take you once you like put, so to speak, pen to paper?
I think it took me once I actually sat down and started writing after doing preliminary
Yeah.
research, I think it took about 7 or 8 months.
That's
And
incredible to me.
then I think 3 or 4 months of play testing after that.
Wow. That's
Wow.
just incredible. That's so much writing, Keith. Wow. Good for you.
When you were, and I know that, like you said, you know, obviously the onus behind it was, you know, D&D 2024 edition, whatever, you know, it's not 5.5, it's not 6, it's 20, whatever they want to, you know.
I call it 5e24.
Yeah, there you go.
And distinguish it from 5e14.
There we go. Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Sounds like there's a superscript in there. Yeah.
yeah. And I know that, you know, like out on Simon and Schuster's website with the information about the book, you know, it says that, you know, you can, you talk about how to create within Pathfinder 2e, within Shadow Dark, within
Mhm.
Cypher, within Call of Cthulhu and things like that. Did you actually do some play testing or gaming within those systems?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, what is your, you know, did you find like really anything like unique or really like different or anything that was like out of the ordinary that really like caught your attention between those systems that maybe you weren't like expecting?
Well, I mean, they're all very different from
Yeah.
one another.
Yeah.
Probably the two closest to each other are D&D and Shadow Dark.
Yeah.
But I mean, Shadow Dark has its own design philosophy. It's
Mhm.
got its own way of doing things. Every one of these systems has its own way of doing
Yep.
things, and
Yep.
so it's kind of a matter of learning that language, looking at things through that lens,
Mhm.
and having an idea about how they model different things.
Were you
and
already
following along with that?
Were you already really familiar with all of those systems?
I was familiar with D&D and Cypher.
Oh.
I was semi-familiar with Call of Cthulhu. I had
Mhm.
played it a little bit, but I needed to take a bit of a deeper dive.
Yeah.
Shadow Dark, I did not begin familiar with, but familiarizing myself with it did not take long. It's a
Yeah.
very
Yeah,
easy
I can see
system
that.
to learn,
Right.
especially if you're already familiar with 5e.
Right.
It's just a matter of understanding that Shadow Dark is all about cutting away everything that doesn't look like an elephant. You know, it's just
Yeah.
pare the stat block down to
Yeah.
its barest essentials.
Yeah.
The one really heavy lift was Pathfinder,
Okay, I'm curious about that.
because I
Yeah.
never played D&D 3rd edition or 3.5.
Mhm.
Which is where it branched off from the D&D
Right.
family. I had to, well, it's a math heavy system,
Yep.
and I had to do a lot of math myself to get a good sense of, for example, how big an impact is a +2. You know,
Yeah.
at what point are you applying enough enough of a modifier for a condition or a stunt primer
Hmm. Hmm.
to feel like it's giving you enough of a payoff that you can then detonate it.
Yeah.
I was actually kind of surprised to find that it doesn't take as much as it does in 5e. You know, in 5e,
Interesting.
if you have advantage or disadvantage, that's mathematically equivalent to roughly plus or minus 4.
Hmm.
Toward the middle of the target number range, it's equivalent to plus or minus 5. So to get the effect of advantage or disadvantage in D&D, you would need to apply a +4 or +5 or
Yeah.
-4
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
-5 modifier. In Pathfinder, it's actually only about a +2.
Oh, interesting.
At least for attack rolls. I think it was a
Yeah.
little bit different for saving throws, but for your basic attack rolls and ability checks, it was just +2. And the reason for that is that um, because you only have to exceed the target number by 10 in order to gain a critical effect,
Hmm.
you get crits much more often, and therefore you don't need to uh, increase your odds of hitting quite as
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
in order to uh, average out to a significantly better result.
Oh, interesting. Okay, maybe this is, I'm not trying to break the system here, but so maybe this is pushing it too far, but I'm curious, uh, for someone who plays predominantly or just a lot of sci-fi,
Mm-hmm.
what would you recommend? Let's say they read Making Enemies, they love it. They're thinking, okay, I want to apply this in my games, like whether it's, Star Trek Adventures, whether it's Traveler, whether it's whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, any tips for that?
I haven't studied those systems, so I don't have specific tips for those systems the way I do for the 5 that I look
Yeah,
at in the
yeah, of
book.
course.
But if you have a deep intuitive understanding of whatever system you're playing in,
Hmm.
then you can take the general information from
Okay.
Making Enemies
Yeah.
and apply it using your own understanding of those systems
Nice.
and put it into mechanics, yourself.
Hmm.
Because so there's the system agnostic portion of the book,
Hmm.
and there's the system ecumenical portion. So there's in every chapter I begin with talking in general terms, um, the undergirding philosophy of what I'm talking about, and then I go system by system and say, okay, if you're playing D&D, you can implement it like this. If you're playing Pathfinder,
Yeah.
you can implement it like this, and
Yeah.
Shadowdark and Cypher and
Hmm.
Call of Cthulhu. So the first half is still there for you. It's just the second half is up to you if you're playing a different system.
Nice. Okay.
With you, obviously, with you writing and everything like that, and with a family and everything, time,
Oh,
you don't, yeah, time is slim, but
time is
assuming,
CR30.
yeah,
Sorry,
time,
I had to interrupt because we're an audio podcast. None of you listening will have the pleasure of seeing Keith's eyes triple for a moment in
yeah,
silence.
yeah. But assuming you
CR30.
had, yeah,
Yeah.
assuming you had the time,
Yeah,
looking
man.
at like Pathfinder, Shadow Dark, and 5e24. Doing that, um, do you have, is your preference still 5e24, or do you,
Yeah,
having gone
what do
through
you
that,
tend to play
do you,
these
do you
Honestly,
days?
my preference is still 5e14.
oh,
Interesting.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm doing right now is a bit of a mishmash.
Hmm.
Uh I do not care for 5e24 character creation.
Okay.
Um Many of the rules changes feel to me like instead of starting from the narrative and saying, how can we model this mechanically? They start from whatever mechanic they wanted to implement and said, now how do we justify this narratively? And I don't like to work in that direction. That being said, I think that a lot of the changes they made to monsters in the 2025 Monster Manual are pretty good. I would say of the 3 new revised core books, the Monster Manual is my favorite of the 3. There are still things I look at in there and shake my head at, but there's some really good stuff too. So what I've been doing, I'm running a Rime of the Frost Maiden campaign with my main group. And in that, we're using characters created using the 2014 rules. But whenever there's a monster that's in the 2025 Monster Manual, that's the version I'm using.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I'm sitting.
Interesting.
Pathfinder, I think, is I'll just say it's not really my cup of tea. I used to love GURPS, but I feel like that level of crunch now feels outdated to me.
Yeah.
And Pathfinder is still very crunchy like that.
Yes.
And it also can be for all of the different options it offers, it can sometimes be very limiting in what kind of characters it'll allow you to create, which is, you know, it's a case where more is less. And I do like Cypher. I tend to like Cypher more for genre mashup games than for just straight up swords and sorcery fantasy. I used the Cypher system for a game that was sort of inspired by the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which was loads of fun. We had a party consisting of Ebenezer Scrooge, who's still talking to spirits, and Septimus Pretorius, the mad scientist from Bride of Frankenstein, and Estella Havisham from Great Expectations, trained to kill by her mother. So yeah, it was a great bunch. It was a great bunch. I had loads of fun, and Cypher was like the perfect system for it.
I always felt Cypher. Yeah, I don't know anything about Cypher.
When I think of Cypher, I think of it more for I don't, not that it can't, I just never think of it as like a high fantasy or something like that system. Although it is. I just always think of it as yeah. I think of it as more, like you said, more of like for maybe like sci fantasy or like you said, like, you know, even in like Victorian era or sci-fi or something like that.
Yeah.
Or, you know, Numenera-esque type environments or something like that, you know. So, but League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, that's
natural
cool.
successor to GURPS.
Yeah.
So interesting.
With mechanics that feel a little bit more of the moment than GURPS now do.
Okay.
Wow. But that's the first time I've heard
someone run hearing about this for a while.
That's cool.
I know what we're going to talk about after the interview.
Yeah, well, there's plenty we'll be talking about after the interview.
I'm curious. Not asking for spoilers or revealing anything. Are there? I mean, you just finished another tome, but I'm curious. Are there more books you would like to write? I have to assume there are. Are there topics or things maybe a little more pie in the sky, but it would be fun? I mean, there must be. Hopefully, there's something next, right?
So after the 2025 Monster Manual came out, I did my speed run to revise the monsters, know what they're doing.
Jeez.
Did that in 5 months. Whew.
Wow.
That was intense, but I did it. That's in the can. It's in my
Wow.
editor's hands now.
Well done.
And it's going to be out sometime in 2026. We were shooting for July. I am earnestly hoping we can still make July happen, although there were some things that may have may end up causing a delay. Really want to get that book out by Gen Con, and I'm
Yeah.
deeply hoping it happens.
Yeah.
But so that's in my editor's hands now.
That's great.
It's just
Yep.
copy editing and art from here on.
Yep.
So I finally have a little time to sit back and breathe and just read for a while and try some other new systems and see what ideas come to me next. I genuinely at this point, I don't know what's next.
Yeah, that's all right.
But now I have the luxury of finally being able to sit back a little bit and take it easy, sharpen the saw, and see what ideas come to me next.
When you're talking like trying systems, anything that's like kind of caught your attention that you have been trying or that you want to try that's been on. Obviously, you were play testing and working with systems for the book, but anything that was outside of that's kind of on your radar now?
Well, a couple of things. I guess I could lump them in, into three categories. One is I'm finally taking a look at Daggerheart, seeing what's up with that. But Daggerheart is wild high fantasy, and D&D 5e24 really embraces wild high fantasy to the exclusion of other kinds of fantasy that 5e14 accommodated. 5e24 doesn't accommodate them as well. It's really gone all in on wild high fantasy. But it's wild high fantasy. Pathfinder is wild high fantasy. Daggerheart is wild high fantasy. Draw Steel is wild high fantasy. It's like the whole market right now is all moving in the direction of wild high fantasy or in blood and grime caked dungeon crawling. And there's not much in between.
Yeah.
So, I really like to live in the anchored high fantasy space with occasional forays into not really low fantasy, but maybe medium fantasy, like, Blades in the Dark level.
Okay.
And a couple of people independently suggested to me that I look at a couple of Free League games.
Yeah.
Dragonbane and Forbidden Lands.
Oh, cool.
So those are a couple that I also want to look at and see how they feel, see if they kind of scratch that anchored fantasy itch for me. And then the third bucket is things that aren't fantasy at all, because there are just some very cool games out right now that I have on my bookshelf that I haven't gotten a chance to do anything with yet. Orbital Blues, Triangle Agency, Deathmatch Island, Flabbergasted, which is Flabbergasted is like this roaring 20s PG Woodhouse kind of game.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I want a chance to take those out for a spin, and I haven't had a chance to, because I've been just eyeballs deep in writing. So
I've done some solo
that's cool.
I've done some solo dabbling with Forbidden Lands, and it's fun, and the material that Free League puts out is
really good,
is high quality stuff. So So yeah,
Wow. I,
that's
okay,
one that's worth it.
so I'm going to be totally honest. This has been sticking with me since you mentioned the update to the Monsters Know What They're Doing. You probably don't remember this, but I remember your response to it when we talked about it 3 years ago. Um, I read the Monsters Know What They're Doing 1E cover to cover.
Mhm.
I don't think I can do that a second time.
Well, I'm going to make it a little easier this time
Please.
because um so this time around I really wanted to throw in something additional that would sweeten the pot.
Ah, damn it.
Um for people who are like, I don't know if I'm, if I need to get the new one. Well, number one, you do need to get the new one because there are enough changes in the Monster Manual 2025
Yeah,
to make
sure.
the original Monsters Know obsolete if
Yeah.
you're using it. So, um, but at the same time, one of the things I found challenging is that the Monster Manual 25 cuts back so hard on lore
Oh, interesting.
that sometimes it can be hard to find things to comment on in an introductory fashion, when I'm starting an entry. And also, uh, oftentimes, in the interest of reducing supermarket fatigue, which is a good goal, um, they've cut back on options to such a degree that there's almost only one way to play a monster. There's
Okay.
like almost only one thing you can do. So what I have done is for every monster, I've gone through and added a tip,
Hmm.
whether it's a modification you can make to the monster or a
Oh,
recommendation of what
that's
other
slick.
monsters to pair it with,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
things to keep in mind when placing it in a certain kind of terrain,
Nice.
or a fourth category that I call shenanigans, which is the loopholes, the uh, unanticipated consequences, the way you can just play this monster and have ridiculous fun with it.
Cool.
And so that's in there for every entry in the book.
Wow.
Um, so
Yeah, you've just given
Man,
people you have definitely upped the incentive
that is
to
slick.
pair it with
mhm,
MM25. Especially like you said, if they've cut back on since they have cut back on the lore in the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm.
Um, and if you're just looking at stat blocks, then you're going to need something to work it with.
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, that was
So,
the beauty of the 1E version of your book that like you were like this is the motivation, right? This is what this monster is, this is where it comes from, this is what it should be doing, and here's why. And that's what was so interesting about it.
mhm.
These aren't just stat blocks. These are
Mhm.
quote unquote monsters. And that was just really see, well, hopefully come July, I will be looking at the bookshelves to flip through that and
Hopefully.
see what look how yeah. Great, thanks. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming back. It's just a pleasure to talk with you. Just seeing all of your books come out, it's
Mhm.
just so neat. And again, I don't know that we ever talked about this before, but the artwork that you get in your books, I'm a sucker for it. It's like particularly, I don't even know what to call it. I'm certainly not an artist, but kind of the that okay, don't shoot me anyone for this. That rounded, more friendly fantasy drawing, that art of
Mm.
okay, these are big scary things, but kind of like Ek Ink, right? But I just want to engage with it. I
Mhm.
just think it peppers all of your books. I mean, and the covers are just incredible. They just shine on the shelves. But I think the art really does bring a lot across them.
Well, I will pass along your compliments to my spouse, who is the one who does most of those interior
Really?
illustrations.
Please do.
Really?
That's
Wow.
incredible.
Yes.
Yeah, she did them in The Monsters Know What They're Doing, More Monsters Know What They're Doing, Making Enemies, and she's also doing them for The Monsters Know Revised.
Well,
Uh,
you will remain our favorite, but please ask if she'd come and talk to us on the podcast because we would love to talk about the art. That's so cool. No wonder she was so willing to take down notes in the car. That does make a little more sense now.
yeah, we've been working together on
I,
most of this series.
I had no
Um,
idea.
yeah, she was not available to do Live to Tell the Tale
Yeah.
because our child had just been born. Um, and How to Defend Your Lair didn't really have illustrations. It was just all maps.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I went
Mm.
out to dedicated cartographers for those. But yeah, all of the monster illustrations, all the monster combats have been her work.
And the
Now,
covers
not the
too.
not the
Not the
covers.
cover.
No, the
Okay, different.
covers.
Yeah.
I have a separate artist, but that artist has done all the covers.
Okay. Yeah, clearly. But that's so neat, Keith. Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, I love the art inside.
Yeah, I think I mean the covers themselves, it's a different type of, I don't know how to explain it. It draws you in because it's a different type of cover for the book. You know,
Mhm.
it's not what you would expect as like a traditional, you know, cover. It's not a novel, it's not a resource book. It draws your attention to make you look. You know what I
Well,
mean?
and that was
You know?
a topic of conversation between me and my initial editor when we were first working on The Monsters Know What They're Doing. The art department at then it was Saga Press. Now I'm being published by
Yeah.
Gallery Books. They're both
Yeah.
imprints of Simon and Schuster. Um, but the art department had kind of wanted to do this sort of, imaginative realism fantasy art that you see on the covers of basically everything, both role-playing game books and also fantasy novels. And I said, I don't know if this is right for this. Number one, because we want to differentiate ourselves from, we don't want anyone to mistake this for a Wizards of the Coast book for legal reasons, if nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but also, I really wanted the cover to convey the sort of combination of reverence and irreverence that I bring to my writing
Yes.
about the game. And so I thought that a fantasy comic book style
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
suit it better. And so we looked at a few artists who were doing that kind of work. And Leo Pressland happened to be available to do it and has just knocked it out of the park time and time and time again.
Yeah,
Especially for the cover of Live to Tell the Tale. I love that cover so much.
yeah, it's just they come across, I don't know how to, I'm not using the best terminology or vernacular, but they're just accessible. They just come across as very accessible tomes when you look at the covers, you know. Um, and then, I can't add anything beyond what Jason was saying in terms of the internal illustrations, just in terms of how it makes them,
They're friendly and they're engaging, even though they're
yes,
monsters. And even though some of the
yes,
monsters are absolutely terrifying.
yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Keith, thanks so
So
much for
cool.
joining us again. We really appreciate it. We were really excited to hear about Making Enemies. It's a
Mhm.
phenomenal book. Congratulations on it. We wish you the best. And
Thank you.
as
Oh
things move
yeah.
forward, and when you're ready with the next tome, or when your next project is out, please let us know. And
Oh, we'll definitely want to talk to you. Yeah.
yeah, and
All right.
we'll have you back on, or if you're up here in the area or if you're in the cities,
Oh yeah.
let us know. We'll
We'll
grab
geek
coffee.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you again, Keith, for joining. You know what I found interesting? I mean, there's obviously a lot that's interesting in there, but a little nugget we didn't dive too deep into, but listening to him talk about, how he said that as a journalist,
Hmm.
he writes and he puts together his material differently. He talked a little bit about Scrivener and how he went back to his old methodologies and things like that. And I just find that interesting and fascinating how
Agreed.
his his cooking, his methodology,
Yeah.
how he found something that works for him. And as a
Hmm.
journalist, that's just, what works for him. It might work for someone else. It might
Hmm.
not.
Hmm.
But it's a little different than what we've heard from other folks
And
that
really
we've
clever.
interviewed and
Yeah.
met with. And
Yeah.
I always love, and we didn't have to even ask, I always love hearing about those things. So I was really appreciative that he started talking about this.
Yes.
Um, and without even prompting, it's one of the first times we've been able to ask about the sausage
I knew
making.
that was coming.
Yep.
I know. I know.
Um,
But I mean we geek out about process, writing
yeah.
and creative process, and he really jumped into that.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you again. I mean,
Yeah,
just
thanks, Keith.
everything in general, but that was the thing I was going to mention before
Hmm.
we jumped to
Yeah.
the interview, but I wanted to wait. I didn't want to give it away before people got a chance to listen for themselves. But hey, let's head over to the Loon Cafe.
Okie doke.
Woo, woo. I don't even know how to make a loon sound. So, sounded like an owl. What's
No,
funny
it
is
didn't.
that no,
Yeah.
I ironically, now that I'm living like out in the country,
Yep.
um, it is, other than first of all, no street lights.
Yeah, I would
Um,
love that.
it gets really, really quiet because I
Yeah.
am far enough away and
Yeah.
over some hills
To the woods.
um
Right.
from a federal highway, which is not heavily trafficked at night.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so at night I will go out and I will hear the snow hitting the ground when it snows.
Oh, that's so nice, Brad. I actually, right before, well, the hour before we recorded this evening,
Yeah,
I went out. I haven't, with things going on at home right now, I haven't been able to walk much. And I went out and it was snowing. And when I started, it was one of the heavy, fluffy flakes. And there was a pretty good, it warmed up to 18, but I think the wind chill was low single
dropped
digits.
it.
And yeah, and that's fine. But with between the wind and the size of the flakes, I could actually hear them hitting my collar on the jacket. And it
See,
was just so relaxing.
I went out and I went out at one point and I heard the snow hitting the ground.
Love that.
And I'm like, that's unbelievable.
Yep.
Then I had to go out and throw some garbage out. And our garbage cans are out a ways,
Yeah.
just out
Yeah.
a little bit of a walk. So I walked out and did it and then came back up to my porch and stood and I stop still because I just want to hear the nothingness,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Um, and all of a sudden I'm hearing it's the deer walking across the
Oh,
road.
that's great.
And they walk across and then all of a sudden they started prancing and running along the side of my house.
Yeah.
And one of them looked at me and I was just like, hey. And literally I just said, hey, just to kind of be funny, like I'm talking to a deer. And it was like a car. It made an immediate U-turn
Yep.
and went right back where it came from, back into the marsh. The
'Cause
other
it's
one
a
kept on
deer.
going because it's a
Wow.
deer. Um, I've got a possum that's in the area here
Hmm.
that I've seen. Um, and I know that I now have two pet rabbits that sit up near the home at night.
Nice. Nice.
And I actually, when I went to the grocery store last week, bought some carrots, and
That's right.
because we used to do that at my place in Milwaukee, and now
Yeah.
I
That's great.
feed uh throw just the little baby ones, the little carrots, the little baby carrots.
If I put carrots in my backyard, I would have a second bumper crop of little bunnies.
Yeah, I'm these bushes are going to get replaced, so
Yeah,
I'm allowing them to have them this year, but
that's cool though.
I throw two little carrots out there, and at night I'll walk out and I'll see these little balls because they're all bundled up and
Yeah,
wrapped into there.
yeah.
So okay, Loot Cafe, you sent me
That was a hard pivot.
yeah, that was a hard pivot. Loon Cafe, you sent me a message this week because there was a book that did catch your attention. Neither of us have
Oh,
it.
it's right here behind me. Yep, waiting for me to read.
No, no, no.
Oh,
No, 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 not that book. Neither
oh,
of us have this book.
oh, yes. Wait.
From Mongoose,
Yes. Okay.
not Pioneer.
Oh, well done.
I just thought it was an interesting, I thought it'd be an interesting just
Okay, so tell everybody what you're talking about.
it was the Starship Operator's Manual that
Oh,
came up
yes.
as a notification for if you are on Mongoose's mail list that it became available.
Mm.
Um, and it is on my list um, to acquire because I mean, just
I would love to see, I would like to see, I'm really interested in it. I'd like to see more of the inside. Then it's
yeah,
just got a couple of like a few pages of example, but it looks like it gets pretty deep.
yeah. You know, I've been working on a couple other things, so I haven't gotten too deep into RPG stuff over the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Um, it's just been kind of busy with holidays and with things like that.
Yeah.
But um, I've been RPG adjacent, obviously, because recently we obviously are getting notifications because we're on the Pioneer Quick Start.
Hmm.
Um, I am on the 5th season Quick Start from Green Ronin.
Very
Um,
good. Very good.
and little things pop up like what you just sent with the Starship Operator's Manual too.
We've
So,
been talking about you and I, not always on air. You and I have been talking about the fifth season since they were nice enough to send us the advanced PDF. My God, how long ago?
oh,
Um, I
a
mean,
good year
quite
some ago.
yeah.
Yeah. They're
Um,
going through Green Ronin is going through a real tough challenge right now with a distributor
yeah, I'm really like to see
and all
that.
that,
Yeah,
so they want to get this out. They're just having to deal with some legal issues out of their control with a distributor
that's
that went through
right.
bankruptcy. But once they can get that rectified,
Yeah,
then things will proceed
that
and
would be good.
and Chris and the Green Ronin team send out updates regularly on it.
Good.
So,
Because I those
um,
expanse dice in my collection are calling for a little roll. Those are good looking dice, yeah.
yeah. Anything on your desk lately, or you have a book behind you, but
I do, but you know what I'll just mention briefly, maybe to close us, is speaking of Pioneer and Mongoose. So, in large part, thanks to your last minute convincing, this past week or so, I binged season 4 of For All
yes.
Mankind. I'd watched the first 3 seasons and it just got too melodramatic for me. Honestly, season 4 got too melodramatic for me too, but I'm really glad I watched it. And for two reasons. One, I never know where they're going to go.
Yep.
They continually surprise me in terms of the plot. And two, watching that is kind of a way for me to vicariously play Pioneer. And so it just made sense.
The Pioneer connection. That makes some
That's
sense.
that that was a main motivator. Okay, hard pivot. One more of these and then we'll wrap it. Um, with my Amazon Music account, we've talked about this. I think we both get this, but with Amazon Music, HD at least or whatever they're doing now, you get a free Audible download every
Yep.
month. And you can switch at any time. You can just have one though for a
Yep.
month. Okay, so uh I saw there is a new recording a very professional cast recording of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Oh,
And I thought, that could be some good car or morning coffee listening. Like I
interesting.
read them all. I read them all to my girls when they were little.
Yep.
But it's the right kind of season for it. I like this story. I don't care. I don't love the first book, but I think listening to it would be very good because this looks like it's very well acted.
Yes.
So I might indulge in that in the coming weeks.
That's an interesting choice, but I want to, well, we'll talk offline about that one. I'm curious about that.
Okay. All right. So while we go and talk offline, you all know the deal. Be well, stay well. We'll see you in a couple weeks.